Remember how cool Infernal Affairs was when you first saw it? Or A Better Tomorrow? Classic Hong Kong action thrillers that really defined a genre and a movie industry. Man on the Edge desperately wants to join that club. It has the cast, it has the musical montages, and it has the plotline. So what you want to know is, should you watch Man on the Edge? I'm the Artie Dans from Asian Film Fans, and let's check it out. If you've seen Infernal Affairs, you're already halfway to knowing the storyline of this film. An undercover policeman infiltrates a triad gang who peddle drugs on behalf of a corrupted British police commissioner. The leader of the triad group is set to retire and hand over the reins to one of his 4 main henchmen, of which the undercover cop is one of them. Infighting occurs during the process of selecting a new leader, resulting in a lot of spontaneous fighting scenes that take place in some of the most cramped locations possible, such as the Kowloon walled city. It's actually not this simple. There's quite a few subplots in this movie that have been added to pad out the runtime and just confuse the audience. But essentially, undercover cop infiltrates triad gang to bring them down. Standard Hong Kong movie plot number 1. This section is going to be short. If you're a fan of the classic Hong Kong undercover police officer infiltrating triad gang movies, as I mentioned before, also known as Hong Kong movie plot number 1, then there is a slightly good chance you might enjoy this film. It has all the hallmarks of those classics. It's not at the same quality level, but in 2022 and with Hong Kong movies heavily influenced by mainland Chinese money, it's probably the best you're gonna get. Of course, it doesn't end as well as Infernal Affairs does. It was never going to, considering this movie is made purely for the mainland Chinese market. It is not made for an international audience, and it's definitely not made for a local Hong Kong audience who no doubt scoffed at the film's release. Which then leads to probably the only other positive thing of the film, and that is the cast. It's not the A-list that you'd expect, but it's certainly not B-grade list either. Leading the way in his trademark leather jacket is singer-cum-actor Richie Ren, and besides some clear boredom in his eyes and his Louis Koo-style emotional acting, that is to say, he doesn't have any, he does an adequate enough job in the lead role. Alongside him is Patrick Tam, who is clearly hamming up his role to be as over the top as he possibly can. If you liked his more subdued roles in Raging Fire and the Storm series, then you won't like his performance here. But he's playing a loathsome gangster, and he does it well. Simon Yam is an interesting choice. He's a quality actor, and his presence alone should have elevated this film. But he's showing his age, and you can just tell he has this look on his face of, not another goddamn Hong Kong undercover cop triad action movie again. He's good, but he isn't great. He could be the best part of the film though. Even more recognisable faces in this film attempt to add some more credibility, until you realise it really is the same handful of actors in these movies. Eddie Chung plays the senior police officer. Alex Fong is the handler. Kenneth Tang as the corrupt legislative councillor. Karina Lam as the grieving widower. And good old Kenny Lowe as the Thai drug lord. No surprises at all in this cast. Although there is one person you're all wanting to know about, and that's Sammo Hung. 3 scenes where he sits in a chair throughout the entire time. Hardly worth it, but at least the producer gets to add his name to the poster as a selling point. So while I might have struggled to come up with some points about why you'd want to watch the film, coming up with points about why you should avoid it was far easier, and that's not a good thing. The first thing, and it's something that's becoming really pervasive in mainland Chinese produced Hong Kong cinema, is the concept of British bad. Now, I'm not implying that the British rule of Hong Kong was perfect, and certainly pre-handover, Hong Kong cinema also definitely explored that opinion, but this movie just ramps it up to the extreme. The British are bad, that's the key message. They're corrupt, and they want to corrupt all the local citizens. They're to blame for everything. Okay, I might be exaggerating a tiny little bit, but this theme feels so strong in this movie. And then we get the mess that is the storyline. It's not just a mess, but it also lacks any real continuity. There's a scene that really stood out, where the Triad uncles are having a meeting about selecting the new leader of the gang. They lament the fact that of the 4 candidates, 3 of them are dead and 1 is missing. Just as that sentence is completed, the missing candidate rolls into the scene with a perfectly pressed suit. No one bats an eyelid. No one questions his presence. He's there, they don't react, and the movie just expects you to move on as well. Then the movie takes a really stupid turn towards the end that is so confusing it feels like it should have belonged to an unnecessary sequel. And the worst part of it is that it's so rushed. The movie comes in at 2 hours, and yet they couldn't find enough time to craft a more complete and logical ending. No thanks. And then there is the action. All of a sudden, fights just break out of nowhere. There's no sense as to why it happens, no flow to the action, and it's so heavily edited that the excitement factor is almost zero. I like fights in movies, but not for the sake of it. It feels like the movie realised the story was boring and nonsensical and masked that boredom with even more boring action scenes. Yeah, so as you can tell, I wasn't a fan of this film. In regards to action, I'd award this film 2 stars. There is a lot of action, including a car chase and a shootout to go with the fighting, but it is so heavily edited and boring, and there are no action scenes in this film that will stick to your mind after the film has ended. The only good thing is there's a lot of action, so at least it tries not to be boring. In regards to the storyline, it's also 2 stars. There's some semblance of a story here that could have crafted an exciting concept, but with one twist too many and what felt like a huge chunk of the film missing towards the end, it's not as exciting as the films this movie so desperately tries to emulate. And in regards to excitement, again, I'd award this film 2 stars as well. It starts well enough, and there are moments it threatens to be a half-decent action thriller. But I'm not looking for a half-decent movie in a world where Infernal Affairs and A Better Tomorrow already exist, and they are excellent films. So overall, it's 2 stars. It's not that terrible, it's just a bit of a waste. The big budget at least keeps this out of the realm of the utterly terrible, but don't rush to watch this one. If you've seen Man on the Edge, what did you think of it? Thank you for watching this review. Please press the like button if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more action movie reviews, trailers and news.